There we go.
Great.
All right. Oh, and Lupe just joined us. So it's 6:12. I'm going to go ahead and call the training ad hoc committee to order. We have kind of an abridged meeting. We have a couple people that leave. So right now I'm sharing the screen of kind of the agenda. If anyone has any comments or suggestions you'd like to add, please let me know. But first, I just wanted to kind of talk about the Google Drive that was set up over the weekend. So the idea is we have a Google Drive now that we can use to put up any documents that we want to do for each of our ad hoc committees. So for training, we can put up, for example, and I'll do it later today, Darlene put up or gave us an updated PDF of kind of the training components and kind of where we are and what's going on. I'll put that up there as a reference. So once we kind of get that going, we can start using that for our agendas and all that kind of stuff. If anyone has concerns on that, I'm sure the team can work and try to help you make sure you can get in there, but that's a pretty high level thing. The other thing, Darlene and I were sending some emails back and forth of kind of some goals and objectives of what we wanted to try to do for the committee. So I think these were ones that she had, some of these she had recommended, and I kind of modified them a little bit. But one of the ideas was have the training that is outstanding that we still need to do for all of us as new commissioners. And then also what's been completed. And then we also wanted to have some proposed training for the future new commissioners. We have at least 4 vacancies right now. So hopefully, late fall, early winter, City Council will actually nominate and kind of process those new potential commissioners. And then they're going to have to go through the same training that we're going through. So we want to kind of have everyone here kind of have a framework. And then what I'd like to do, as I said in our last meeting, is I'd like to bring that framework forward to the full commission so they can review it, provide some feedback, let us know what their thoughts are, and then we can try to get that finalized. And then, well, actually, I guess before getting finalized, kind of that last item, trying to get some community feedback to see what the community either likes or doesn't like. Now, that being said, I think just because someone either does or doesn't like something, that doesn't mean the commission has to follow that. But I think it's important to make sure that the community is involved. And if there's concerns or questions, we can also answer, as a training committee, why we had proposed that and what we think the purpose of that is. So those were kind of the high level pieces there. Darlene, did you want to chime in at all on that?
Yes, because I still am not 100% clear on what training's required. Like, when will we have enough background that we can review cases? That's not clear to me yet. So I think that's something that's an important piece. And I just to put it in context, it's hard. I'm adjusting to having a job as a commissioner and not having a job of somebody being in charge. So some of like my doing that PDF that I made and everything is me trying to understand, but I'm also fighting like we should do this first and then this, and like being too directive. I don't know how much of that is welcomed or is even a good idea. So I'm trying to keep myself in check.
Yeah, so my experience with the past commission, and obviously we're all volunteers. And so my experience is if we get too heavy-handed with volunteers, people are like, you know what, I don't have time for this, and people drop off. So I think your point is valid. I think it's good for us to come up with a framework, and I think we can try to propose ideas and options. The nice thing now is we also have commission staff, which we used to have our executive director, but that was really it for the longest time. So we have some more resources available to us, and I think that'll be good. But actually, let me pull up your training. So I think my thought also is, as I talked about at the meeting, is we've had a couple of meetings where commissioners have chosen to abstain from voting on allegations just because they didn't understand policies or procedures. And I think that's probably the first piece that we really need to get kind of hammered down as part of training. But I think in the interim, I think now that we have our chief investigator, the benefit with that is she can really do a lot of that with us. And I think she sent out an email earlier this afternoon asking for any volunteers that want to help kind of review those cases. And that way, I think that's kind of a training, like hands-on training of going through some of those cases and getting that done. And then once that's finished, I think we can extend that out to everybody else. Sorry, give me one second. I'm trying to find that PDF you sent me.
I understand all of that, Brandon. That's clear to me. But what's not clear is like
What
Do
are we
we do
supposed to
that
learn?
one time with Olga and then we're fine? Do we need to do that 20 times? You know, I have no, it's very kind of nebulous for me.
Yeah. I mean, and Dennis, I think it was Dennis I heard
Yeah.
starting to say something. Like, go ahead and chime in.
I'm on the same horse as Darlene. I don't have a picture of how much training we're going to get. What training are we going to get? What's necessary to do this job? And how long is it going to take? And it's a very nebulous thing. Oh, it's going to take a few months. We're going at it as fast as we can. We're doing it, and we're doing both of them together. And all of that is from the past. Was there a list of training that you all would take somebody through? If so, that would even serve as a framework to look at, so that I could get my head around how much training there is here. And like Darlene said, and when does the training end? And then which part of the training is ongoing, and et cetera.
Yeah. So, I mean, the training in all of our agendas that we get every meeting, kind of that where you have all the components, that's really the training that, has been proposed. So, I know Darlene has some questions. Well, some of it doesn't seem like it's actual training. It's getting the commission up and running. I mean, we can kind of debate whether you want to call it training or not, but I would say that, like, 4 or 5 pages, that's the training.
Right. Right. I get that. I totally get that. It's still not clear which things are important for case review and which things are other types of training, because then we could make recommendations of how to order it, right? And also the component thing is so bizarre, because new component numbers are used when it's just a different group of people doing the same thing. I mean, component 4 should be component 4, whether the whole group does it or somebody else does it. It's very confusing, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Lupe, I see you just raised your hand.
Yeah, I was under the impression that we were going to work on the process on how to review cases. I think that would be a really good start, among other things that we talked about tonight. How to go about in reviewing cases. That would be my biggest thing, besides the other things that we're doing on the side. I don't know. That's what I was hearing, over and over again this past business meeting that we had.
Yeah, and I think, and everyone, like, please let me know if your thoughts are different. I think part of what we want to do is at least get, I would say, the most frequently seen policies and procedure complaints. And I think that's what we need to train first. So it's like, that's the use of force, it's detention, it's, search and seizures, it's, those types of things. I think those are the ones that tend to generate the most complaints. Once we understand at least what the department's policies are on that, I think that helps us know how to review those cases when they come in. I think some of the other training, and for some reason, my Adobe's not working, so let me share this real quick. And I agree. I think with some of the comments you guys made, training is going to be ongoing, to be honest. I mean, it's
yeah, we do understand that, but I think it's like doing it all at the same time it's a big challenge,
Sure.
Because we're trying to learn the protocols, procedures, whatever, and then the law, legal ramifications and everything, and then trying to learn how to do the case reviews. And I know in my job as a health practitioner, we had protocols on how to review cases, because we did a lot of peer review, patient cases. Right. So, but we also had a knowledge of the protocols too, of, it's like a cookbook. And I think maybe that would be helpful if we can have like a little cookbook, a little cheat sheet of like, what are the, excuse me, of the, because I haven't been to any of the trainings. I mean, like the police academy one, I'm still barely going this, I guess, next Saturday or this Saturday, and going over to the police station. We got to do that. And just learning the ins and outs, that's something that's really important. And I agree with you. We need to learn that too. But in essence, I think we have to also work in some kind of a template of how we're going to review cases and what, where, what, when. I don't know. Something
and,
like
and some of that, I mean, and I get it. I mean, part of it is a lot of people don't know what they don't know yet, which is, I think, a big part of all the questions and the concerns we have. But part of it too is the bylaws group, which is kind of working in concert with what we're doing. They need to also come up with the bylaws of how we review cases. And because, we're kind of working in parallel. So typically the bylaws that we have now, it basically says how the old commission works. So you'd have groups of 3, and then those teams that work together, they review cases. But what we've also talked about is now that we're going to be having staff, is we can change the whole process. So kind of what we were talking about this last meeting, do our investigators, once we have them hired and on staff, do they do that and they present it to us in this more like blurb? So that's why we're in flux, because some of those things need to be, flushed out first before we can really go over that. But that's why I was kind of saying, I think learning what the policies and procedures are probably the most important thing first. And then we can supplement that once we actually find out what the bylaws committee has decided, and once they present that to the full commission. Because otherwise, if we just decide, here's how we're going to do it, and then the bylaws committee does something completely different, we're going to have to start that over and kind of redo that piece. So the document, I think you guys can see my whole screen, I believe. Can you see the PDF? Okay, good.
Mhm.
So and Darlene had created this. So if you want to kind of talk through it, but what she had done was taken the topics, the components, the numbers we have here from the document that we always see in our agendas. And then she kind of added, the presentation, who's going to be doing it, whether or not it's part of the NACOL guidelines. And then she had some questions and comments. And then over here on the very last column, it was the status, for example, if things are finished and completed, she put those in there. So this is also the document I emailed out to everyone earlier today. Darlene, did you want to add anything to that, or have me scroll to any page?
Well, the one thing is the component numbering might not always match that outline that we're given every week. So I put my source in the notes there, that
Okay.
I just started with the very first draft, the oldest draft that we ever got. And then I added some more anyway. And then, I mean, given the conversation we're just having, maybe one way to look at this is look at all those topics and what are the ones that are important for us to do our jobs right now based on the current operating procedures and bylaws that we have. And are those things scheduled, and when are they scheduled? And do we want to ask staff to reprioritize them? I don't know.
So some of this, like, for example, and I know it's what Lupe was saying, is this one, half the commission has done it, half of it's going to be doing it this upcoming weekend. So I would say kind of this whole chunk, I probably can't highlight because this is not the right thing, but the agency procedures for detention, search and seizure, booking, custody, all that. I think that's an important chunk, especially because obviously people.
But that didn't happen when we went to the PD.
Well, no, it did. They talked to, to a certain point. They didn't hold that procedure out, but we went down to the Sally Port. We saw how that works, where people are detained. When they talk about detentions, I think the other one is when you go to Police Plaza, which I haven't done that, as I'm going to be doing it this weekend. But my understanding is these were at least the agency procedure piece, like this chunk here, that was supposed to be covered, I believe. And then if we go to this other one here, this is something that was, again, kind of covered by how internal affairs works. That's, I think, you can argue, is that training? No, maybe not. But I think it's important to understand how their process works so we can figure out how to make things more efficient. The case review piece. Yasmin, go ahead. You can talk.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Commissioner Momat, from, it looks like you attended the training that was about SDPD policies, but maybe it didn't cover everything you wanted to see. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Well,
I'm understanding correctly.
I did the tour of
okay.
SDPD, but it didn't get into the, it was just like, yeah, I was in the Sally Port and stuff, but do I really truly understand everything that they do from that one time? I don't think so.
So would it be helpful to literally have like a presentation? This is the language of the policy. This is examples of how this policy takes effect. Is that what you're kind of looking for?
I don't know. Brandon's saying we need to know more about policies and procedures. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know what I need,
No, we
because
agree.
I voted in the meetings. Maybe I was naive in doing that.
Yeah, well, no, I'm sorry.
Lupe, go ahead, Lupe.
Yeah. It's just, I know I agree with Darlene, that I think that we need a little bit more because I don't think you get it the first time.
Yeah.
I know for myself, I'm not gonna get it the first time. And would it be agreeable to have someone from PD to come and do a presentation or something, just like what, other folks that come, like ACLU did one the other day. Maybe something like within our business meeting, 1 hour or probably whatever it takes to understand, some of the policies. And
I think
Mhm.
and I'll share this. I'll send an email to the cabinet as well, but maybe what we just do is we have, Dwayne, Doug, and myself can present the policies and procedures. And I think Doug and I can help kind of show what we've seen as complaints and kind of what's most relevant in certain policies and procedures. That might be one of the easier ways. And then if there's certain questions that for some reason we can't answer, then maybe what we do is we'll take a note of those and we can have the department, provide a response. But I think one of the things I'm hearing is I think people don't always want the department to come in and explain everything. I think especially since we have those policies and procedures available to us, I think, all of our team, all of our office staff, and Doug and myself, I think can help kind of present those at a commission meeting. And then if we need to have that supplemented with SDPD, information, we can do that too. But that might be the better route, I think.
Okay, no, but that's agreeable. I would be,
Yeah.
I'll be for that, yeah.
So I'm making a note. So I did this before when I was training some of the previous commissioners. And I kind of went through all those PDFs and I would highlight sections that I felt were probably the most relevant of what, an officer can or cannot do in certain situations. I will have to get access to that again, because I think, actually, let me double check. It might be, let me stop sharing real quick.
And the
Just
other
making
thing I would say while you're looking at, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Yasmin.
It's okay. I was just gonna make sure I understand correctly. Brandon, you're saying let's have Dwayne talk about the legalities in the actual language, and then you and Doug can give examples of how that shows up in cases that you've seen in experience from your experience.
I don't even necessarily think that. Okay, yeah, hang on, sorry. I'm trying to pull it up. I don't even know if he has to go over every policy procedure. I think we can do some of that ourselves.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because they're all
I think
public.
they're in there. Oh, I think they're still there. Hang on, let me look. Okay, let
And
me
then I
share my
have
screen
another
again.
question, when we are going to be discussing cases at a meeting, if we had the relevant policies and procedures related to those complaints that we could review ahead of time,
Yeah,
I
so
would be helpful.
this is where our reports are a little bit different from the department reports. When we get the IA report, they actually put that in there. But so for example, what we did here is when I was chair, I kind of created all this. So you can see we put a folder in and everyone should have access to this. It's the CPP shared documents. So you could go and you could see the discipline manual. If you go into the policies and procedures, I put all of the policies and procedures we have in here. So for example, if you go in to administration, 1.04 is use of force, and you can actually see all the details of that policy. So I'll double check. I think it's under the training folder, but what I had done is I had highlighted all the sections that seemed like if we scroll way down here and use of force, you guys can see the discipline matrix that we were talking about. So when we were talking about passive, like this chunk here.
Brandon, do you want to expand that because we see your entire screen
Oh, sure.
since it's recorded?
There you go.
Thank you.
Anyway, so this is for the use of force. What I'll do is I will go through and I will pull that information up, and then I can reshare that with the cabinet. And if they agree at one of the next meetings, we can present that, I think. But I remember, I think I had 8 or 10 of the policies and procedures that we tend to see most frequently. And I think that's probably helpful. And then what we can do is we can, get any clarification from commissioners where they want to add anything to that.
Right, and I think we
kind
need
of-
to be careful not to overwhelm everybody too. That's
Agreed.
why I'm saying pairing it with the cases that we are currently looking at might be a way to prioritize those. Because 8
Okay.
or 10 doesn't sound bad, but I think it's kind of a lot.
And they're yeah. I mean, we can all look through them separately as well, but there's a lot of details in those policies and procedures.
Can you share that in the drive, in the Google Drive?
It is,
Or-
yeah,
it
so
is-
it's, I'll send a link to everyone, to at least to our team, and you can all have a link of how you can find it, but you go into the shared documents,
Mhm.
and then you should have all that information.
Okay,
I know we're kind of getting late on time, and a couple people, so they had to hop off, so I want to try to move forward a little bit. And I'll share the agenda real quick. One of the things we had talked about last week was possible budget. So I did have a conversation with Charmaine earlier today. So we're talking about this section here, C. There's roughly currently in the budget approximately $20,000 that is earmarked for training. One of the things that she pointed out is, it's important to, as I believe Yasmin pointed out last week, there are some people that will do the training for free, that there's no charge. There's other things where there probably will be some kind of nominal charge. So we do have that chunk of money to play with, and that would be for getting some outside experts. If we want some non-STPD expertise, we can pull from that roughly. I mean, it's not the exact number, but roughly that amount. If you look at the overall city budget piece, the amount for contracts and services, it sounds like it's a lot of money. It's about $450,000. But one thing that the email I sent out to everybody that we need to just make a note of is that is not only for training, and that covers a whole bunch of other things. That covers our outside, our counsel. So that's Dwayne, which is about $180,000. There's the independent investigator, which is about $22,000. There's the future search for our potential new executive director, which we're earmarking approximately $50,000. With the new office space, the furniture loan is about $44,000, and there's some moving expenses, which I believe the city or our team is trying to get some budgets on that. So that 450, I know it sounds like we have this huge number, but there's a lot of things that are going to be getting pulled out of that. So we can figure out what we need, and once we budget things out, I mean, we do at least have that 20,000 that is earmarked for training. And if we need to have people come in, like I said, in the past, we had someone from Kentucky came in and they were talking about the carotid restraint. And I believe we had to pay for their airfare, hotel. I don't believe they charge us to actually speak and present to us, but we did have to cover, I believe, his expenses. Does anyone have any questions on that? Yasmin, go ahead.
Brendan, I'm wondering if the 20,000 already includes NACO, or if NACO's expenses are already calculated outside of this.
My understanding is that number is specifically for essentially like here in San Diego. I think expenses for like people, as I said in the email, our cabinet is going to the NACO conference, and several members of our staff. And so we have to cover their hotels, their airfare, all that kind of stuff, their per diem. But I believe that comes from a different line item, but that does come from that contracts and services budget. So that, I mean, again, that pulls down from that 450-ish number.
So I just did a quick calculation, and miscellaneous then is $150,000. That's a lot.
Well, yeah, but I didn't put every line item on here. I mean, there's,
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a
Because
lot.
what you have there only adds to 300.
Right. And I think, and I don't have it up right now, but there's like 30 different line items that go under that contracts budget. So I didn't put every single one in there. I mean, some of them are things like our printing expenses when we have to use the city services for printing. I mean, there's, probably a couple $100s in there. If we wanted to, I think the parking passes, when we have to give people validation to use the parking permit, that's in there. I mean, all those items are in there. I didn't put every single line item because obviously it would take up more than this one page, but yeah, we can talk about that later if we need to, but I mean, there's a lot of items that go into that.
yeah, I think I saw it. Wasn't it presented at the last business meeting? There's like a document that we can access. I think I saw it. Anyway.
If
Yeah.
there was,
Not
maybe I
this
wasn't paying attention. I don't remember seeing the budget.
Probably, yeah. It was probably later in the afternoon. I think I saw it. I opened it up, and maybe I found it myself.
I think
don't know.
someone asked for it and they
Yeah.
mentioned that it's public, so maybe you opened it because it's public information.
Right, yeah.
Well, here I can show.
I haven't been able to find this level of detail anywhere.
Really?
A second, I'm going to change
Um,
this.
Where the heck did I find it?
Is this what you saw?
Yes, that's the
Okay,
one.
so I'll scroll up. So this is the number right here.
Mhm.
This is the full contracts and services line item for the fiscal year. And again, this is everything for budget. So it includes like our salaries, the pension costs, the unemployment insurance. I mean, all that stuff comes under this. So if we scroll all the way up, oh, this just tells us what we're doing. But you have like overall, so here's like the salary information. We have like the general fund details of what our overall budget is. How many employees we were expected in fiscal year 22 versus 23 and 24. And then some kind of major significant changes to the budget. And then this is kind of where I think we saw that number of the 450. But again, to Darlene's point, if you just did the math that I had on there, I mean, I didn't put every single line item, but there's things like postage when we send out, the letters to complainants. I mean, all that stuff, all that comes under some of these things for contracts and services. And then you can kind of see overall for all the personnel, what the salary ranges are for all of those. But again, this is a public document. It's on the city website.
So can you share all those details that you didn't put on the agenda? Can we see that?
Yeah, I'm sure we can get that.
Because 150 is a lot. That's not, like, postage doesn't add up to 150.
Well, no, but I mean,
Validation doesn't add up to 150. You know what I'm saying?
let me see.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have some notes, and also I don't know what level of granularity all that goes to, but let me see. I took some quick notes. Let's see what we have. So there's like a consulting services, and I think that's kind of a catch-all. That's what I was talking about last time, where if we needed to hire a use of force expert or something like that, if we wanted to have someone that maybe disagreed with what the department's use of force expert said. Yeah, I mean, there's parking, there's travel for training, training for the $20,000 is in-town training. There's non-personnel expenses, meetings. I mean, it's probably for like things like food when we have sandwiches. I mean, there's a whole bunch of line items, and all of those things come out of this overall big budget. But if we need to get more details, or if we're curious on that, I'll check with Charmaine. Like I said, I don't know the level of information that gets shared publicly, but we can always ask.
I would add one thing. I think at least one of the commissioners last meeting named that they wanted to see the budget and all the details in like a CPP meeting. So if that's something that you also would like to see, I would recommend emailing Charmaine in the chair as well, just letting them know that this is something that's important for you.
Okay, trying to keep on. I know a couple are going to hop off, so let me go back to the agenda real quick. All right, so the training components. This is something that Darlene and I had some conversations on. It sounds like some people are getting confused by the component numbers. I think we can work with the staff to try to, maybe make it a little bit more clean and crisp. So like, for example, if we have the tour, 2 different tours of SDPD, maybe we find a way to make that more clear that it's one component, but maybe it just has 2 different dates. And the same thing when we have to go to the police plaza for things like the simulator, the firearms simulation training or training simulation. Like we could put those in there and try to make it clear. The other thing that we had talked about is, in addition to doing the training for all of us, it's the training that's going to happen for commissioners that come on down the pipe. Lupe, go ahead.
Yeah, how about the ride-alongs? I'm kind of curious about that because I saw on the plan here something about November ? Ride-alongs to be completed. But how does that work, and how do you sign up for that?
Are you
Yeah.
referring to the community ride-alongs or the police ride-alongs?
Both.
I would say
actually,
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will check with staff, but I feel like if we wanted to, as commissioners, if any of us want to start doing those ride-alongs now, I don't think there's any problem with doing it. If you want to do it this weekend, I mean, I'm sure, scheduling aside, if we want to get that going, I don't feel there's any reason why we would not be able to do that. But let me check with Charmaine and staff. And then maybe what we can do is, if people want to do it, we can start getting those scheduled. Typically when I've done in the past, just because of work schedules and all that, I would do second shift, which is kind of in the middle. Like it starts at, I think, at 2 and goes until about midnight. And I typically would always do Saturdays just because that's when it worked for my schedule. But also the way I was looking at it is that's probably when things are going to happen. And if there's going to be complaints, that's probably when they would get generated. I recommended to people when I was chair that people consider doing their home district first. So I live in North Park, so I did Mid-City first, just because you're more familiar with that area. And I think it makes it easier for you to kind of understand where you're going, what's going on. But I think with the police ride-alongs, I think we could probably start doing that now. I can work with Charmaine and IA to see if we can get those set up. But basically the way that works is you would send our liaison at Internal Affairs, you send them an email and let them know that you want to do it. Typically what I would do is I would give them 4 or 5 dates that work for me. And then they would send that to the division, and the division would then reach out to you and to try to say, hey, these are the dates we have available, what times work, and then you get that scheduled.
I think we need to be careful about the optics with this. So I think we need to be very purposeful about why we're doing the ride along, so that the community knows why it's important to the work that we do. And also like what the purpose of the community ride alongs are. And so
Yeah.
I don't think we should do it hastily, given
I
the
think-
input that we've already gotten.
Yeah, but I think also it's important. I mean, we are independent, but I would say we would be doing ourselves a huge disservice if we completely shut ourselves off from, being able to do those ride-alongs with the police department and also with the community. From my experience, when I've done it, I always ask them, it's like, what do you like about policing? What do you feel the biggest problems are? What would you like to see changed? And, obviously they know who we are, so they're not gonna like tell us super horrible things, and they're not going to put us with the people that get a lot of complaints filed against them. But I do think it's an important thing, and like I said, I know some people feel like we should not have nothing to do with the police department ever, and I personally feel that would be a disservice. But I think that's also something we can bring back to the full commission and have everyone discuss it, and the pros and cons, and then we can figure out how to move forward on that one. But
Well, I think it would be helpful if we could articulate in a nutshell why it's important to do, like a couple sentences or something.
Sure.
You know what I
I mean-
mean? I'm not disagreeing with you,
Yeah.
Brandon. I'm just saying we need to be careful about how we do things.
yeah, I would say it's just to be able to see how policing works from inside a squad car, essentially. Because I mean, when I've done it, and I've probably, in the 9 years I've been on the commission, I've probably done 10 of them or so, including like sitting along with dispatch and things like that. But I think it is important to see kind of how people respond to them. And I've been on calls, here in Mid-City where Cop Watch is there, and they're, even though you're there with them, they come up and they're like kind of chastising you too. I think it's an important version to see what an officer deals with. And the flip side of that, it's important to see what community members deal with. So like when I did a sit-along with Layla, she was kind of explaining, here's what we see and here's why people are getting stopped when they probably shouldn't be stopped. It's important, I think, to get both sides. But I agree with you. We probably need to at least explain what the purpose is. I know Andrea St. Julian has basically said like we should not have, or should have very little to do with the police department. And I think I understand where she's coming from that, but I think the ride-alongs are important for people to learn, especially because once you see complaints, it's important to kind of know how it's getting done.
Yeah, I have to agree too. I think it's important too, because I was offered to do that too when I was doing the SART, the sexual assault response team. We did a couple of ride-alongs, and that was really important to see how police interacted with victims, of sexual assault. But you know what? I have a question though, because I'm in touch a lot with the community resource officer, because he often comes to our community meetings. So I know you're talking about a process that we have to go through IA first and ask for permission or give our dates. Can we not do that through our CRO? Or because I actually know the captain of Southeastern Division, and I can't do that like directly, like email her or email the CRO and say, hey, I'm interested in doing a ride along. We have to go through IA.
I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn. So I'm just going to say,
No.
like, the
Yeah,
way
okay.
it used to work was we always would go through IA. I think if you
okay.
have that relation with your
Uh-huh.
community resource officer, I'm sure you
Yeah.
could. The one difference is like any citizen can request a ride along.
Oh, that's right.
You
that's
don't
right.
have to be on the commission to have a ride along.
Oh, yeah, that's
Difference
true.
is because we're essentially unpaid city employees, it's a little bit different for us. So for example, if we, I mean, not this would happen, but if we were, doing a ride along and we got into a car accident, theoretically we're covered by the city's workers' comp. So it's a little bit different, but I mean, I'm sure you probably could. The other thing is we get to do, when we do our ride-alongs, we get to sit in lineup. So when the officers first come in at the beginning of the shift and they talk about, here's what's going on in our division, we're afforded the opportunity to do that, when my understanding is an average citizen asking to do a ride-along cannot. So
Oh,
it's a little bit different. But
Okay.
I before I say yes, you can contact whoever you want. I would want to
Okay.
check and confirm that, but you probably could.
Hmm.
Yasmin,
Okay.
I see your hands up, and then Lupe, I think I heard you starting to say something. So Yasmin first, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that for the ride-alongs, staff can also support with scheduling those. So Alina can actually just send the email on your behalf if you're interested and get that information. I would agree with Brandon, but that's I would check in with Charmaine. As I think your personal relationship outside of the commission, while is helpful, if anything happens, you're still a city commissioner, and it's best to go through the channels that we have through the city. And the final thing is for the community ride-alongs, that's something that we have a community leader that offered to support with doing that. So,
Oh,
and
okay.
there's a budget piece to it. So,
Oh,
I can share more about that in the drive. I can put more of the money parts in the drive, and then I can also support with coordinating if that's something you all and the commission decide to move forward with.
okay. Sounds good.
Then Lupe, did you have, I think I cut you off when you were first trying to speak. Did you have
Oh,
something else?
No, no, no. I think it's good that we go through a process because, as Yasmin was saying that, if anything should happen and, we're not per se city employees, right? Or are we?
We technically are. We're just
Are,
unpaid
yeah.
city employees. Yeah.
Unpaid, right. So if anything should happen, workers' comp comes in play, correct?
Right,
That's like
yeah.
legal, yeah, that sounds, yeah, I agree with that.
And the other thing is, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. The other thing that we can do is, and I don't think we've done it yet, but in the past, we used to borrow a bulletproof vest from Internal Affairs if people wanted to. And we as a commission, we're going to buy our own vest. So if we were going to go on a ride along, we could go down to our offices, pick that up, basically, check it out, do the ride along. It depends. I've done ride-alongs where the officers are like, you don't need it. And I've also done ride-alongs where like, I would wear it. So, I mean, it's up to what people want to do, but we can get that all taken care of in the future.
So.
Yep.
Getting back to the training components, current and possible future, can we ask staff to take the list of trainings, clean them up so we know what really truly is planned right now, and add the purpose of the trainings, like add a column onto it. So then we can maybe, and also make clear what's related to being able to review cases.
Okay.
What's required to make that happen. And then I think we might have more information. So as a committee, we can start to think about what possible future trainings we might need and what we recommend for the new commissioners and stuff like that. I feel like we're missing some details.
Okay. And like I said, I'll pull up those policies and procedures that I think are probably the most common, and I can share that on the Google Drive so people can look at that. Maybe people can look at it before, and then we'll also do like a training we have at our meetings so we can kind of go over what we see.
Brandon,
Yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner Hill.
No, it's fine. Brandon's fine. Yep, go ahead.
Can you include me in that email, because I'll probably support
Yeah.
with putting that together.
Of course. The next section E, and I know we're trying to keep on schedule here. Whoops, I just totally did that wrong. It was identifying possible outside expertise. I know this is something that Yasmin had started pulling together for some outside feedback and thoughts. These 3 items here were items that Darlene had put in there: the civil rights and human rights expertise or expert, impacts of policing on individuals. I added communities as well. One of the things I think this kind of relates to is we did have a meeting probably a year, well, it was before COVID, so I guess it was like 3 years ago. Specifically, it was about the use of the carotid restraint, that we had members of the public come in who had it used on them, and they talked about the impact of how having the carotid restraint applied to them, how that impacted their life. So I think things like that are probably important for us to hear. And then any kind of outside SDPD law enforcement experts. Now, I know we have some of those, like for example, we had the ACLU that came in last week. I think there's a bunch of others that we could look at, whether they're here locally or if we do a Zoom kind of a meeting. I'm sure we can find a bunch of different options. Anyone want to chime in on that real quick?
Yeah, and that's making me think, with the request to have staff put together a nice, clean list of what the training is and plan and the purposes, folding in the things that you already have in motion would be great.
Yeah, we can do that. I will say, in regards to training, like scheduling, the last couple that are already scheduled are the ones happening the next week or so. Other than that, we're still trying to find dates for the other ones. We had a couple scheduled but shifted based on priorities that cabinet identified. So we need to find new schedules for those.
Okay. The next item I had on here was, we talked about this a little bit last week. What I'd like to do is once we get that taken care of, I think we at least need to have one more meeting for us. And then I'd like to bring things to the full commission for them to chime in, provide some feedback, and then open up to discussion to the commission and the public. So what I would propose is I'll work with staff, Yasmin and everyone, to try to pull up some of what we're talking about with the various components, what the purposes are of each of those, and kind of what we're hoping to find. And then once we all agree as the training committee, we can then essentially approve it on our side, and then let's take it to the full commission and get their thoughts and feedback. I'm hoping we might be able to do it. And I don't know, Yasmin, do you know, are we going to go back to the second and fourth Tuesday meetings?
I'm still waiting on 6 people, but
Okay.
it looks like Tuesday is one of the options that a lot of people chose.
Okay.
And there's a couple more, so not yet sure, but Alina named in the meeting on Saturday the 24th. We have a room for the 24th if the commission wants to meet then.
Okay.
Already reserved.
All right, I'll make a note of that. I was gonna say, if we're planning on doing our next meeting on next Monday, the 23rd, that might be a little fast to turn that around. And then the only problem there is we obviously wouldn't be able to get any documents included in the agenda, because the agenda has to go out 3 days prior to that meeting. So we could put it on the agenda, but we'd probably be missing documents that we'd want to talk about. So that might be too tight for us to get, but if we have it after that, we can figure out how to get that scheduled, but I'll work with staff on that as well. I'd like to get it to the full commission sooner rather than later, but I also want to make sure that we're done with our work on our side first.
So do you think we should wait 2 weeks to meet?
Sure, we can do that. So you guys, everyone wants to skip next, let me pull up my phone so I can look at the calendar. So maybe not. So next week, the 23rd is a Monday. The following is the 30th, which might be an issue with Halloween with some people with their kids, possibly. I mean,
It's fine for
Halloween's
me.
Halloween's on Tuesday, but I mean that I'm wondering if that might be an issue.
From our end, I think Brendan, I'm not sure about your capacity, but from our capacity, we can probably get it done for next Monday. The
23rd.
your asks, yes.
Okay.
But maybe you all cancel the next one, since it would be going to CPP commission as a whole after. So maybe instead of canceling next week, you cancel the
The
Halloween.
following.
Yeah.
Does that work with everyone? So we keep the schedule for next Monday, the 23rd, and then we tentatively cancel the meeting for Monday, the 30th.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, I see thumbs up. So, all right,
That's fine.
perfect.
Do
All
we
right.
do we have a meeting on the 24th, a business meeting, right? We have that for the
It's-
people that signed up for the San Diego PD visit, and then later we have a meeting, right? The same day of the 24th.
It's tentative.
Tentative.
We have
Oh,
we have a room saved, but we don't have
Right.
it set in stone yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it sounds like maybe not. So, all right. So I'm just sorry, I'm taking notes. Okay, cancel. 10:30. Okay, so I think for the action items, most of those I think are on my plate, and then I'll work with Yasmin and staff to try to get those taken care of, and then we'll send out documents. Typically, what I'll try to do is I was gonna try to send it out on the Friday prior to our meeting. I was waiting for the budget information once Sherman got back from vacation. So that's why it went out today, but I'll try to do that by this Friday as well. And then I think with that, we're good. Any final comments? And if not, we can close our meeting 3 minutes early. Excuse me.
And Yasmin, is it helpful for you to have the Word document that I prepared, or you guys already have everything you need to create the details and the training for us?
I will name, we're not gonna be able to get all the details by this Friday, because it depends on other people. But I think it will be helpful just to have it, and I think we already have access to it, right? It's in the drive.
Well, just a
No.
PDF, but I can send the Word file over.
Sure. I think that will focus it a little bit more. And Brandon, the agenda for today was very clean and easy to follow, so that with your notes would be helpful as well.
Sure. Do you want the Word doc of that? Because I think I sent the Word doc, right?
Is it in the drive?
No, I can put it in the drive. I'll put it in the drive
Sure,
as well.
sure.
I emailed it out to everybody, but I will add this up there now, and then I will just keep everyone in the loop on what's going on, but I think we're good to go.
Oh, you want me just to do my document in the drive too? That'd probably be easy, right?
Yeah, if you can put the Word doc up there, yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll do it right now.
All right, well, I think we're good. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you later.
Good night. Good night.